moving on to Windows Firewall. Well, here we go. Hardening Windows Firewall. We can create exceptions based on the application. Always base your rules on the application or the binary so that the port is only open when the application is running. If we set the rule using only the port to be open, it'll always be open. Rather, if we use the application, the port will only open when that specific application asks for access. Number 2, we can keep PowerShell from accessing the internet. This specific fix can help keep ransomware and other bad actors from utilizing PowerShell to control the system remotely by inputting those PowerShell commands. You can also make sure that logging for PowerShell is active. That way there's always a trail and we can see what happened after the fact if something were to happen. Number 3, we need to regularly audit the settings. Regularly testing the firewall by selecting a subset of systems and attempting to run a specifically created malware tool or other item or tool that performs similar actions to malicious software, and we verify that the firewall catches it and stops it, or catches the data that it would try to transmit. Moving on to IP tables. This one is the hardest for me because this is the one I didn't have any previous work in. I had dabbled a little bit with the Ubuntu server, but not really with IP tables. But here are 3 ways we can harden IP tables specifically. We can utilize UFW. Many Ubuntu server utilize, especially home users, utilize UFW or uncomplicated firewall as a front end for editing their IP tables. This is not a requirement to set up the firewall. You can do it manually from the command line, but it is a good idea since it will supply a simple interface for the administrators. Number 2, we default the settings to block all rather than allow all. This allows you to block all outgoing and incoming items except port 80 and 443. 443, and then whitelist the applications that you need to utilize on an individual basis. This means that applications won't immediately be able to access the internet or the system, whichever way it's coming, without the rule being implemented, and thus hardening the system. Number 3, we can set the default SSH port to something other than 22. If we set the default SSH port to something other than 22, you'd set it to a high-end number and an unused port like 22222. That keeps the common bots that search the internet constantly looking for these vulnerabilities from detecting port 22 and seeing that there's a system on the other end, because your server will not answer on port 22. It'll only answer on the other port that you set it to. These are quite a few ways to harden the system. And here are my websites that I utilized in my research for this. As I said, I was fairly comfortable with the Windows server and the Windows firewall specifically, less comfortable with Ubuntu, and not at all, familiar with IP tables. So this one was probably the newest to me. In my current job, we use Windows servers and firewalls specifically, so I was fairly knowledgeable in them. But thank you.